Hey, Matt.
Hey, all right, welcome. Just came back from Costa Rica last night. Go from 90 degrees to like 5, so that's
How was
a
that?
little bit of a shock. So if it looks like my
You look
face
good,
is,
man. You look tan.
oh, I mean my face is peeling like crazy. The I don't use sunscreen, so it got me pretty bad.
So the Patriots won when you were gone too. Did you watch that game?
Of course, I watched that.
I mean, live. You were there. Boom.
Well, I mean, I wasn't
not live, but I
live
mean,
in
you were
like
watching it
Denver.
at the bar or whatever in your room.
I was watching it at a bar in Costa Rica.
Right.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. I didn't see the game, but I mean, it was pretty like exciting, right? It had to be.
I mean, 10-7, close game. A lot of people said it sucked, but it was like true chess match.
Got
The
it.
game after that was just, last team to have the ball win, no defense.
There was a
Yeah.
field goal, right? Like, so, or something. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So where are we at with the market, Matt?
Tons of data this week. FOMC was earlier today. So far, a nothing burger, but a lot of times you don't see the reaction until the next day. I know we had a lot of earnings after hours. I haven't had a chance to look. I saw Microsoft down like 4%. Whether it still is or whether I saw that right, I don't know. I mean, if it is, I'll probably buy it tomorrow. Probably a lot more. So we're telling people, look, I mean, we tell them always have hedges. Certainly you want to have hedges when markets are at all-time highs and we're looking at a ton of data. It looks like Qs and everything is up a little bit after hours, so net probably halfway decent, but got a lot going on this week.
All right. So we got Prasanna Ojara here in Houston. He's the Black Swan Capitalist, XRP expert, Ripple, all that. Talks about gold, dollar debasement, all that. I'm just going to start by saying, Matt here, we have a Heat newsletter. This is a Heat podcast. Please subscribe, all that. Talked about gold today and basically saying, we've had some government problems or some government risk, and, there's been a flight to gold. Want to talk about that a little bit, Matt? And then why don't you jump onto that, Versan, please, will you?
Yeah, so what I'm seeing in all of this, so normally people be like, oh, gold, we got to buy gold. And I think you should have gold. I think you should have silver. Would I buy it now if you don't have it? I probably would not.
You would not, huh?
But I think normally you should have these things. When I see moves like this that are like, massive, out of the ordinary type moves, what I'm trying to figure out is what the signal is. And I don't know, but we've got precious metals going crazy. Crypto was going crazy. Now it's not. If you still look back over the past couple of years, crypto has outperformed precious metals. Dollar weaker, something's going on. Yen, all sorts of stuff. You've just got to keep your head on a swivel. So, yeah, I mean, Versan, love to hear your thoughts on this.
Sure. Like you said, a lot going on. And the problem is there are just so many moving pieces, and it's hard to keep your eye on everything simultaneously. And like you said, looking for the signal. Now, before we got on this call, I just watched the latest FOMC meeting, and I keep saying this, I'm honestly stunned because none of it reflects the reality that we're all faced with. And it really comes back to the central banking model, and it's exactly what it looks like. It's a system that is centralized and it engineers inflation, it crushes the purchasing power of the middle class, and simply transfers assets to those closest to Wall Street. Like Edward Griffin said from Jekyll Island, it's really a cartel. And I think that's the real core of the problem here. We could beat around the bush all day and sugarcoat the information as far as what the central bank's monetary policy or next steps are going to be. But the true reality is that all fiat currency is going to come to an end. And I think that's the bigger, the real signal here. And you mentioned something about gold over there and silver. Yeah, I understand you wouldn't be buying at these all-time highs. But when you factor in inflation, gold and silver compared to inflation is pretty cheap. But when you're looking at dollars that you're saving in, it's diminishing your savings, really. Again, a lot of other moving pieces here, but then the question is simple, is like, is the structure and the dynamics that we're still subject to of monetary policy going to change? And I don't think so. The debasement trade is still ongoing, so they're going to keep printing money to keep things afloat. And the stablecoin bill has something to do with that. We can talk about that later. But as long as they're going to keep debasing the currency, which is actually the end game here to reset the financial system, then I think gold and silver are going to climb higher. Sure, there are going to be pullbacks, and I kept hearing this narrative about when gold was coming back down after these new all-time highs. Hey guys, gold and silver are now in a bubble. And as we can see, it reached new all-time highs again, right? But the real bubble, I think, is still in fiat currency. So I do believe that gold and silver have a long way to go still. And if you look at the sentiment of consumer confidence that is decreasing as more and more people around the world are looking for safe haven assets or alternative currencies or alternative settlement systems. The other side of this is gold and silver are going to continue to preserve your wealth. It is indeed a monetary instrument. And finally, I would say if you look even closer at the Bank for International Settlements, which pretty much sets the rules and regulations for all central banks around the world and financial institutions, they classified gold as a tier 1 asset class, and they did not want to share this publicly with the world. It's just been a lot of independent journalists that have been trying to get this information out there. And when you look at that alone, that regulatory, the Basel III regulations, it really changes the dynamic of the entire conversation, because it means gold is now treated as collateral. And that really changes everything. So tier 1 asset, meaning zero risk. And that used to be the bond market. Now the dollar is liquid, but we're seeing, I think, what is it called? Death by 1,000 cuts. So that overall dynamic and that trajectory has not changed yet. So I do believe, and I've been saying this for many years now, as an investor, and I learned this recently, 8-9 years only in financial markets, but quick learner, every month you should be disciplined to play offense and defense. So you're playing defense by preserving your wealth, the money you work so hard for, and you're playing offense by investing where money is going. So you have to do both.
All right, so a lot to unpack there.
You think?
Yeah, as Pat knows,
Sorry, guys.
our podcast has had pretty good luck with gold, right?
We've had some
I
gold
don't remember
guys,
when we had the last
gold and silver.
gold fan on, but it was
Gold's been
it was a lot of percents ago.
Yeah, and silver, by the way. Don
Yeah.
Durant, Silver
Yeah.
King.
I mean, precious metals. So we'll see whether we can keep that streak. And I don't disagree with you. I mean, I tell people own gold and silver. What about crypto? How does that fit into this whole debasement theory? Because it's been interesting. Crypto's gotten crushed as gold and silver are going up, and it seems to have happened right around the point of everyone saying, oh, crypto, you don't want to own precious metals, and then kaboom.
Yeah, I totally get it. And you know what? I've been saying the same thing, very similar to you. I think 99% of crypto indeed is a trend. It's speculation. It's treated that way. So we're not actually using the technology to look for some sort of alternative settlement system. But when you follow the big banks and the financial institutions that pretty much run the show and the monetary system, they are indeed putting frameworks into place where you're going to have this bridge between commodities or a basket of commodities, and you're going to bridge that with the distributed ledger technology. And I think that's the real breakthrough here in this technology. Like, where's the real value in crypto? There is the store of value story, and I would like to call it that because Bitcoin is treated that way, even though Bitcoin is tied to the debt market. So when there's expansions, Bitcoin goes up. When there's contractions, it goes down. But it hasn't decoupled from the underlying issue, which is still, in my opinion, the bond market, which is tied to the dollar, and that is under pressure currently. So I think Bitcoin will continue to climb higher. It's not the preferred asset that I choose to invest in for many different reasons we don't have to get into right now, some more nefarious, which will not even be tolerated on YouTube. When we start looking at the overall value of distributed ledger technology and tokenization, smart contracts, the value is in killing some of the inefficiencies that we have in traditional financial markets today. Killing nostro-vostro accounts, killing the friction, being able to move value instantly. And if everything's going digital, there's going to have to be some settlement layer. And the dollar at the moment is the settlement layer for all transactions. That's why it's the reserve currency. But if it's being abused because of the misuse of it, which we've currently seen, the countries around the world are aggressively buying hard assets and gold because there is going to be some breaking point where nations, want trust, something physical that's under their own ownership. And one specific asset I talk about quite often is XRP because it falls into that category, addressing all these different issues and being agnostic, very similar to gold, okay? So the new world order that is approaching, and something we've speculated for many years, I do believe it's a multipolar world with different nations around the world using different settlement infrastructure. So that's where the value is in crypto. The problem is it's treated as a speculative asset simply because it's tied to the debt market. And there's a whole list of things we can get into that would explain this a little more thoroughly. And it goes back to Wall Street, and Wall Street is tied to the central bankers, so it's no different.
All right. So, and the problem with crypto is it's a lot of things. It's like saying stocks. Well, do you mean growth, value, AI, all of this stuff? And a lot of times people, and I make this mistake too, will use Bitcoin and crypto interchangeably. But if you understand the marketplace, all of these cryptocurrencies are completely different. And just like everything, some of them are going to be gone in a year and others are going to be at a gazillion. So you singled out XRP. Explain to the people who don't understand what XRP is, and is that like a crypto that you like, that you think people should be invested in, or what?
Yeah, so first of all, to explain, crypto is three components. Number one, you have the token of value, which would be, in this case, the XRP, the Bitcoin, right? The second layer is the blockchain. That's the accounting mechanism, the operational for being able to connect different financial systems. It's the blockchain, the accounting mechanism. And third, it's the protocol. The protocol is very similar to what we have in the internet. For instance, right now we're all using the internet. We're on riverside.com, but you're not ever thinking about the HTTPL. You just go and use it, right? So the protocol is probably the most important thing, what it really comes down to. And if you look very closely at XRP, and it's not just XRP, there's a complementary technology that falls into the same category, which is called XLM, built by the Stellar Foundation. Now, these are the only two technologies, in all honesty and truth, within the entire financial ecosystem. And I will be providing documents to you after this call. You can read them yourself, and we can do a part 2 for this and discuss what has been broken down over there. Now, these two technologies are the only ones so far that are integrated as regulated rails for settlement and value transfer. And that operates within these frameworks laid out by the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, the United Nations, the IMF, where basically financial institutions will be using asset-backed digital currencies. And sadly, Bitcoin does not fall under that category. It's treated indeed like a speculative asset beyond market demand. So it's really the XRP and XLM that are designed and engineered to drive the velocity and high-speed settlements across borders, whether it be retail or institutions and even banks. So it's not really competing with banks anymore. It's helping banks connect and kill all the inefficiencies that you see in financial markets. So in my view, digital assets in general, crypto, what we call, it's simply going to function as an operational layer for the digital economy. That's it. It's going to allow institutions to settle value and cost effectively while providing a bridge between the traditional financial markets that we have today and the next generation of digital monetary systems. So it's going to be the digital counterpart, in my opinion, to a basket of commodities, whether it be gold, whether it be silver, and again, that's the real breakthrough in the tech, is having gold as collateral again and a digital counterpart to move real value around the world instantly, cheaply, and fastly. More accessible too.
Can I say this a simple way real quick? So
Yeah,
basically you're saying that XRP has the most utility, and that utility is helping settle a variety of transactions globally, quickly, cheaply. That's the pitch, right?
Pretty much.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So the XRP, the asset or the token, hasn't performed that great, right? And I don't know if that's important or not, but would the value of XRP, in theory, increase the more transactions are done? I mean, that's the idea, right? If the transaction amount quadruples or tenfolds in a year or two, XRP, would obviously be worth a lot more. That's really the kind of the crux of this, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, I've written articles about this, how it is indeed, I think, one of the biggest financial cover-up in history about where things are going. Besides silver, you guys know how heavily manipulated silver has been. XRP is no different, and I have articles in detail explaining how this has been achieved, all the way from the SEC, which works with Wall Street, the Senate Banking Committee. So yes, absolutely. And to clarify, for people to understand how XRP actually reaches a very high price, you have to look beyond all the noise and speculation. And when I say noise and speculation, I'm talking about the overall crypto ecosystem. Focus instead on the mathematical design behind the XRP ledger. Focus on the fractional divisibility, the macroeconomic implications for its intended role as a universal bridge for settlement of value. So the architecture of the technology itself confirms this in many different ways. So what I'm trying to say is that the higher the XRP price is, the more value can be settled for fewer and fewer tokens. So its design is to be infinitely scalable. And I know this sounds crazy, but it is indeed going to play out in real time. And the whole idea is to anticipate these things, these massive shifts before they happen. And if you look all over the world, all the frameworks confirm this. It's just people don't really actually look into the documents. Instead, what they do is they read the big headlines and they focus on what the CBS, NBC, Bloomberg talk about, and they simply reiterate the same narrative. And in my opinion, based on historical context and things that have recently played out too, this is programming. Look here, don't look over there.
Okay.
So, takeaways for investors. So you're talking about gold, you're talking about silver, XRP, being hedged. Filter this down. So what takeaways can listeners get for what you're suggesting?
Well, the world is changing very fast. Technology is really disrupting it, monetary policy as well. So I think for just everyday investors who understand the intersection between monetary metals, that's real value, and of course where money is going, digital, everything's being digitized, we can confirm this. You need to have a balanced portfolio and strategically plan for 2026 and beyond. So gold and silver for my portfolio, something I've been teaching alongside crypto, so I haven't just left it out like some other podcasters out there. I use this as a real foundation, not just for security and wealth preservation, but for having long-term strategic intrinsic value. I do believe that you need some skin in the game as far as the technology, where money's going. And again, that comes down to the operational layer, which is the technology that is ultimately settlement, and that's what it's built around. The other value in this ecosystem is interoperability, smart contracts. So there are only a few technologies from this. My final point is basically you need to have a balanced portfolio where both sides of your portfolio, offense and defense, can complement each other. Because if you look at the frameworks, it does indeed confirm that there will be a marriage between the two anyways. So that would explain why they're aggressively buying commodities and hard assets. And it's not just gold and silver, it's copper, it's platinum, it's palladium, water rights, land, you name it. So there's going to be this marriage between the two.
So let's talk about each parts of those, because we also teach people, I don't call it offense and defense. We teach what we call the heat formula. H is hedges, and then on the other side, T is themes. So we tell people be invested in the top themes, but have hedges. To me, that's offense and defense. What would be your definition of defense?
Gold and silver. They've always been monetary instruments historically. Central banks, like I complained about in the beginning, are the real problem here. They are constantly trying to, I hate to say it like this, but they are taking our freedom away and trying to give us digital solutions instead of having some real monetary value behind what we do. And money is so important. It's how we interact. It's You debase the money, you debase society, and we're already starting to see this. So I think you need to play off defense by having gold and silver, and I don't care how high the prices are, as long as the debasement trade is going on, which it is, then they are going to indeed climb higher. Not to mention some of the other critical components and contributing factors about where this is all going. We are indeed at a turning point where a new world order is emerging, and that is going to be challenging the United States dollar hegemony status. So you can expect things to go parabolic. Not to mention the bond market, if I'm not mistaken, it's already showing signals of failure. I mean, the stable coins are a temporary solution, and we've explained this before, but it's not going to last. They're tied back to the same toxic assets. So the stable coins are pretty much the United States saying, you know what, we're going to preserve our hegemony status and drag this on a little bit longer. At the same time, you have the same central banks who are behind the Genius Act adopting the same Ripple net infrastructure, and we have proof of this too.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question, right? I think you wrote about this. So like a week or two ago, in theory, in Venezuela, the USDT went from $1 to $1.40 or whatever overnight, okay? Recently also, in the New York Stock Exchange allowing digital 24/7 tokenized trading, blah, 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 right? So how do those are two those are two things that are, are utilities, or I don't know the best way to phrase it, but what utilities will make XRP work, and how do those, how do the two things I mentioned relate to XRP?
Well, if you look at XRP, what really provides it more value is, again, the architecture of XRP's divisibility. That does play an important component. We're talking about tokenomics here, very limited supply. And when you factor in what it was intended to do, then yes, 100 billion is nothing, okay? Liquidity, efficiency, and high value utility, that's very important. If you look at the entire crypto ecosystem, again, you have all these networks out there competing for the same solutions, and you're not talking about the ones that are going to operate as a global bridge currency. So if we're going to be realistic about this, the value simply needs to be high enough to handle the volume of global liquidity demands without inflating the supply or destabilizing the market. Another contributing factor is the demand and supply. So you just take basic economics. There are only 100 billion XRP in total supply, with half of it circulating on the retail market. The true circulating supply available for global liquidity is even smaller when you factor in what's being held in reserves quietly. BlackRock, JP Morgan tried to expose this in 2023, got smashed for it. Look at Davos, now they're starting to roll this out little by little. Private custody, institutional lockups, retail holdings, including myself. So you're going to see a supply shock later on. And again, the real purpose of XRP is to serve as a neutral, and that's a very important word, neutral global settlement asset. So again, it has to carry a high price enough to support the cross-border flows of value. And you can tie that into the debt market, the derivatives market, interbank settlements. I mean, you're talking about all the money in the world.
Utility then, though? Like, what is the main reason people would? What is going to be the thing that kicks this thing off? And whatever. What's the next bull market reason?
Honestly, it's value transfer and settlement. More importantly, how did, again, earlier I said the dollar is the settlement instrument that we use for all transactions. That's why the dollar is the most liquid. Now, in a world where the dollar is gradually, it's going to be around, okay? I'm not saying it's going to be replaced. I think every country around the world, and I have the documents for this, are going to have their own digital currency, whether it be a CBDC or a stablecoin. Ultimately, they're all going to be using the XRP to bridge value. And you're talking about tokenizing the entire financial system or financial asset classes. So that's really what's going to drive the price of XRP higher. It's the fact that it needs to constantly remind itself that it has to factor in all that value at any given time. So it will have to carry a high price in order to settle all that value at any given time.
Right. Okay.
So you mentioned offense and defense. We got defense, gold and silver. What's on offense?
Well, I think technologies that are certainly going to play a role in where this is going, and settlement is the most important. I do only hold a few assets in the digital ecosystem. XRP is my number one holding because of
I kind of
settlement.
figured.
Yeah. Yeah. XLM is my second because it targets more of the retail market. HBAR is being used for auditing of financial markets, transparency, digital IDs, things of that nature. You have Algorand, which plays a critical role as well as far as smart contracts and tokenization of those smart contracts. Quant, QNT, which is the interoperability aspect, basically the connective tissue. So I know they sound a little more complex, but there are certain technologies that I've invested in. This is what we do. We teach this stuff in detail. And we've been explaining this for years, each of these technologies, pretty much how they function, what their value is, and they complement each other, which is also very interesting. So XRP, XLM, HBAR, SHX, Algorand, Quant, Velo, and that's pretty much it. I don't have
Okay, so no individual stocks. You're more looking at kind of this whole digital tokenization.
There is a stock I recently got into. A friend of mine sent it to me, and it turns out the military-industrial complex is going to be using their drone technology. That's about it.
Which one's that?
I'll say it off record.
Okay, it's called off record, or are you going to say it's off record?
I'm going to say it off record. Yeah.
Okay, got
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
'Cause that's
So
a weird name.
not in front of 8,000 viewers.
I know, that's cool. I'm just messing with you. So let's go back one more thing, right? So you talk about the Clarity Act. That
Yeah.
never came about, right? That died. Is that true, Matt? And were you involved in that, Matt? I mean, they talked about how you could structure, like, currencies, and if they would be like considered a commodity, or how they would be, how they would be kind of considered by the SEC or whatever it is. And that,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I mean, did you look at all that?
Bitcoin
And if you could hold it in an
Ether
ETF or not, and all that.
Yeah. I mean, that's a mess.
Right.
Bitcoin and Ether are considered commodities. Technically, they're under the National Futures Association. You've got rules for an ETF, you've got to have a certain amount in a security. Crypto is not a security. You have that. I mean, the entire infrastructure, legal infrastructure around crypto has not caught up with the innovation.
Right.
It is a complete and total mess.
All right. So where are you at with that, Prasan? You say a lot.
Yeah, very, very solid point. I love the way Matthew just put it. But the Clarity Act, listen, crypto isn't dead. You were asked this earlier, why is crypto going down really? It actually is tied to the Clarity Act at this point, because the Clarity Act is simply going to separate the securities from the utility. And I do believe whenever that does happen, markets are going to have to be forced to reprice overnight, maybe. But basically, speculation narratives are simply going to fade away. And I think real utility is going to get absorbed with real capital. So money won't leave the system. It's simply going to move into compliant technologies that are built to operate within the frameworks. And these are the frameworks we've been laying out for many years. So there's time and place
that
for
a little
it.
bit, because I mean, I follow a little bit what you're saying, but what are you really saying there? That
Most crypto will die.
right? I see. If it has no utility, and you're saying most of it doesn't,
yeah.
so yeah, whatever.
Yeah, but then there's the other argument to this. Some people say, well, if crypto is treated as like a casino, which it pretty much is. I mean, you have a meme coin out there, and people make some money, and they run away with it. If that continues, and if you look at the bigger picture as far as like consumer sentiment, and how much basically consumers are spending all their money looking for quick gains and returns, it's going to get to a point where like people already don't have money, they don't have savings. So eventually, I think you have to weed out the speculation, you have to get rid of all the noise and bring the real value where it needs to be. At the end of the day, I really believe that this technology was designed to free us from the central banks and financial institutions, but I think most of the people in the crypto ecosystem have lost that plot because we depend so heavily on regulators, banks, governments, the on and off ramps. So eventually, I do believe it's going to get to a point where there will be clarity and real guidelines. And beautiful enough, XRP already meets all that criteria. It's simply waiting for the rest of the market to catch up.
So who do you think wins, the CBDCs or the, kind of the Bitcoins of the world if fiat gets replaced by something?
Well, I've always been fighting for fiat. We need to keep fiat. We need some form of convertibility if we're ever going to maintain our sovereignty. I do believe that the entrenched powers, the banking cabal, you could say, they do have a lot of influence, and they control a lot of the regulators. So it's very possible that they do have their way for a short time. I don't know how that's going to really play out. And that's, again, why I hold lots of gold and silver, because the truth is I have a very good idea about the frameworks and how this is playing out. And, I'm not bragging here, but we have an 8-year track record of on-spot analysis on these macro developments. So I think we're doing a pretty damn good job, and we still see how this could play out, but we don't really know. So to a point, even us, we're speculating to a degree, because it looks like the central bank digital currencies will have to be inevitable in some way, form, or fashion, UBI stablecoins, which is another word for CBDC, simply because there are too many people out there that don't have assets. As they said from the Wall Street movie, this is the ninja generation. No income, no job, no assets. So you have to factor in what are all these people going to do when the banks go bust, if they do, because of all the leverage, and if there is no money. What are people going to do? So you're going to have a solution that will gradually be rolled out as well. But final thing I'll say is I do believe in natural selection. If you look at history, it does prove that natural selection is indeed real. Some people actually benefit from a crisis. Most people suffer from it. So I do see us in that camp. And, we've been right about so many things, and it's not bragging. These are just the facts.
So how does this play out, right? I mean, what is if this plays out in some kind of average standard way, how would this play out? Like in 20 years, what's going to be different?
It's a very good question. I can't really see into the future, but if I was to anticipate, I would say that eventually the bond market will break. And if the bond market breaks, you're going to have liquidity freeze all over the world. Yields will simply detach and stop behaving as they do. And central banks, or the powers that be, are certainly going to have these emergency meetings, as we've seen in history before. And they'll make an announcement, and they'll simply roll out whatever the new system is before the market opens.
So then, you are sitting and you have a bunch of gold somewhere in a safe, and you're going to, smelt it down and make some coins and go trade it for groceries and stuff like that? I mean, is that kind of what you're saying?
Well,
not
serious.
really. I mean, I don't know, man. That's how it sounds, bro.
No, it does sound like that. It's pretty funny, and that's exactly what we do.
I don't know if it's funny or not, but Matt's laughing, so that's why I laugh.
No, I get it. But you have to look at the bigger picture. Again, there's this bridge between the digital system and the commodities. That is indeed happening. If you look at the frameworks, they talk about this openly, how essentially there's going to be a two-tier backed system. Two-tier, in my opinion, is you're going to have one for institutions that is possibly backed by commodities, sound money, and there's going to be another system where it's simply a UBI or something along those lines, a CBDC potentially, where money is injected into your account and you are indeed in a total slave system. And this is what Catherine Austin Fitts talks about a lot, and Whitney Webb and a lot of the other voices out there.
Do you think this is viable, Matt?
I think it is what?
Viable, like what he's saying? I mean, is this realistically
Well,
possible?
I mean, obviously,
I'm serious.
If you are a government, central bank digital currency is in your best interest because now you control.
Right.
So if you are let's say, continent or a country that has a desire to control kind of the narrative, and I can entice you not to say certain things because you'll be penalized if you do. Because I can lock up your money very, very easily versus, I've got my gambling winnings from Costa Rica in my desk.
Very nice.
Okay, so my question is more like this. Do you think it's
unless you break into my house?
You live in a nice community and yada yada yada. Do you think we're all just going to drive our nice cars but we're going to have our little gold ingots that we trade out for our food and all that? I mean, is that realistic? We're going to have our own little gold. We're going to just go and guys are going to have scales.
I would say that that's not.
That's not what he's saying. You don't think?
Yeah,
that's
not what I'm saying. Yeah, that's not what I'm saying.
I wouldn't think so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's not what I'm saying.
Pat's a little slow.
Well,
Listen,
I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, you know, I don't know.
Well,
So
no,
what are you saying then? What are you
exactly
saying?
what I just elaborated here. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that trust alone is not going to be enough. Gold and silver, right? A global monetary system needs to move capital quickly, efficiently, and across borders.
Right.
Now, if you look at the traditional,
Pat, try moving like tons of gold quickly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
well,
just
this
said
is-
the bond
Like
market's gonna
I
collapse.
can
What
wire
happens
$1
if the
million
treasury-
in 5 minutes. I can't wire $1 million worth of gold.
Wait, he said the treasury market would collapse, right? If the treasury market collapses, there's going to be some structural changes. I'm not sure what that is, but
Yeah.
it's going to be big, right?
that's what.
And then money goes into gold and silver.
Yeah.
Yes,
and then
but
what?
1 second. Wait 1 second, real quick, guys. Also, we've reported on this before, and we've spoken privately off record with Judy Shelton, all right?
Okay.
And when we asked her to come onto the show to discuss these things like 3 years ago, she told us she couldn't come on because of certain things we were talking about, and later on down the road, we should follow up with her. What has Judy been reporting more recently? She's talking about putting the bonds back to gold, at least 20%, 30%, maybe 40%. Now, if you put gold back, you certainly can stabilize things for a bit, maybe even bring it back to a real solution. That's all I'm saying. What I'm saying is that gold needs to be integrated back into the system. And if you pay very close attention, it is gradually being integrated back into the system. That's what these frameworks are saying. If you simply read the Basel III requirements, it talks about having gold.
But you're kind of saying the system's going to collapse. So if there's no system to integrate back into, what
get
are
it.
we going to do? Print our own
Listen,
bonds?
drastic-
that is a distinct
drastic-
possibility.
Whenever there are some serious measures that need to be taken, they already have them in place. Is what I'm saying is
Right.
there will be some sort of crisis which will roll out the solutions. Which solution is it? I think it's a variety of things.
Well, I think we should be going along spam if you're correct, man. Does Hormel still make spam, Matt? HRL? Is that even on the tape still? Because, I mean, that's what we should
it
be
could
doing.
be. I only eat meat, but spam doesn't count.
Okay, so let's move on. Let's go to this whole new subject, right? You've also, both you guys, you know, we were all talking about that whole thing like about a week ago. What's so funny, let me just back up. You were supposed to come on a week ago. Things got screwed up. I made like a little chart of what I wanted to talk about. The rate of change in a week's amazing, right? Last week we were talking about, you know, this tether stuff, the Clarity Act, you know, and UAPs, and there was going to be this UAP announcement a week later, yada, yada, yada. So where are you at in the UAPs? Do you believe that's coming? What do you think about that?
It's
You
a little
discussed it, so.
No, of course, yeah. It's a little unsettling because I've been down some interesting rabbit holes along the way. You know, people say follow the money. You start looking at things that take you elsewhere, and that's just how it goes. Researchers go pretty damn deep, and you have to look at some of the other things that tie into the grander narrative here. Now, the whole UAP thing, I think, has been carefully orchestrated way back from the 1940s. Now, I'm not saying there is no technology or anything along those lines, but I do believe for many decades, through film, through disclosure, all these nonsense hearings you see at the Congress and the Senate about the UAPs, I think it's all bullshit. I think what they're doing is gradually soft disclosure and programming people to accept an inevitable event that they may stage on the world. Who knows?
Right.
But I mean, that's a whole different discussion. My point, though, is that apparently this is what Werner von Braun said from NASA, who created NASA after World War II, Project Paperclip.
Right.
And he said the final card is going to be a staged invasion. And basically it would be a lie. Yeah, well, Project Bluebeam is certainly one piece of it. That did not come until later on down the road, you're correct. And you start to ask yourself why they're putting all these satellites in the sky, something more darker, actually. I found this out in 2022. You ever seen those chemtrails around the sky?
Yeah.
Okay, so the chemtrails are not necessarily just participating in the freeze and certain things that we see happening with the geoengineering and cloud seeding. But it turns out that they actually had, I know this sounds crazy, you ever been to Hollywood and see the green screens?
Of course.
Okay, So apparently they found the technology to put it into a spray. So basically they would, I know this sounds crazy, I hope you can cut this part out, but apparently they would be spraying
We're
this stuff
fine
in the
with
sky.
crazy. Don't worry about it.
Spraying this stuff in the sky, so when they're ready to do Project Bluebeam, they would have a projection over the whole planet or something along those lines.
Oh my goodness. Why have I never heard this?
Yeah, a green screen in the sky, basically, in nanotechnology. When I read that report in 2022, I definitely got goosebumps. And like I said, guys, I've been down some crazy rabbit holes. And also, that's why I keep coming back to some of the things I say, these big, bold statements, because there are things I'm aware of that I've studied over the years. And I've spoken to people off record, like Douglas McGregor, Scott Ritter, many different individuals. And, it's really a crazy time to be alive. And going back to the whole UAP thing and the financial crisis, I put a joke out there basically saying that, well, it turns out, according to the Bank of England, that if there's a global liquidity crisis, the aliens are going to come. And obviously,
They
it
said
would
just
be...
the opposite, right? Didn't they say that?
I think they may have said
It was a joke.
the aliens are going to come and it's going to cause a global crisis.
And
Yeah,
that's what that was a joke, or that
Well,
was they said that for real, right?
They did say that, yes.
Okay.
But the thing is, this was all staged over the years to create the very scenario of having this discussion one day. So it's really weird. It's a strange time to be alive. But one thing is definite is that the powers that be, whenever they need a scapegoat, they're going to have some drastic measures in place. Go back to 2019 when the repo market was failing and the financial system was really beginning to crack. All of a sudden, we have a pandemic. But the funny thing is, or it's not even funny, I'm sorry guys, but they achieve multiple objectives all at once. And the problem is people focus on one objective in the grand narrative, that they're not paying attention to all the other things that are happening. So the UAP thing apparently was going to crash the market and ultimately bring in this new technology. And what's as crazy is that there are a lot of other researchers who say some pretty far stupid things, in my opinion, that don't actually make sense, and they're falling into this trap, basically saying the aliens are bringing the technology, which is really silly. I think it's always been here, and it's being staged in a way where people have this great awakening. At the same time, they're not realizing they're being put back to sleep by the very same people who are waking them up, like Elon Musk and a few others.
Any thoughts on this matter? I got one more thing to talk about. You want to get out of here?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're launching a UFO disclosure ETF next week that would take advantage of this technology if it ever comes out. So,
all right, I see. Okay, so that's all we can say probably. So one more thing, right? And Matt, you talked about, he was supposed to be on here like last Wednesday or Thursday, and you're like, in the Heat newsletter, subscribe, right? A Heat newsletter. You actually talked about something last Thursday I thought was interesting. You said COVID. I think COVID was a game changer in many ways. During this period, everyone worked from home. Investors started trading stocks and connecting with each other like never before. Talked about meme stocks, GameStop, all that. What do you think about COVID, Vasan? I mean, what happened there? You just mentioned it. You kind of, is that what it was?
And don't worry about us getting demonetized. We don't make any money from this.
Yeah. So this was like, was it like a meme? Was it like a, just a big psyop to cover UFOD or whatever all the other bullshit you could cover?
Just so you know, I think everything is a psyop. But
right.
Go ahead.
Me too. I'm aligned with Matthew as well on that. If you could put fear into people and see how they react, I think that's what they did. See how far they can push people. And they succeeded, sadly. Until today, I see people wearing masks. I don't know what to say. And I do believe it was a massive psyop. I do believe that they did this for multiple objectives. I actually used to own 3 brick and mortar stores as well.
Right.
Had electronic stores. And when the pandemic came, I actually saw what was coming as far as financial markets, and I was studying this stuff at the time. I was forced, way before I had to, for necessity. I sold all my shops. I fired all my employees because I saw what was coming. So they definitely consolidated a lot of the wealth out there by telling people to stay at home, work from your computers. So that's one objective. They've consolidated a large amount of wealth and money and killed mom and pop businesses and destroyed a lot of the middle class. The other thing they did was basically centralize control around food, medicine, narratives, so propaganda, that's the news and mainstream. So massive consolidation. The other thing was they did attempt to injure a lot of people as well, which is a very dark rabbit hole. There is confirmation that there was snake venom in a lot of the vaccines, multiple snake venoms, okay, very poisonous. And if you're putting this in watch the waters, and it gets so deep, man, I don't even want to go there anymore. But it was a very bad moment in history where the globalist really tried to achieve control. And I think it was a test phase for what they're going to try to do next.
Do you feel that way, Matt?
I don't know that I would go that far. My thought is I don't think anyone intentionally engineered COVID. I do think it was a lab leak, and I think once it came out, certain forces mobilized and took advantage of it for their own means.
I agree with that. And the final thing was the artificial intelligence. The fact that people were working from home after they've consolidated a lot of the wealth, put in the new rules and regulations,
Right.
They were able to really push technology on the next generation, very extreme, like extremely.
Right.
And now you have the convergence of blockchain technology, artificial intelligence, and destroying middle class and labor force all coming together. So again, there are so many moving pieces, and these people are very smart. They're not stupid. They know what they're doing. And it's real psychological warfare. So if you look at what's really transpiring in the grand scheme of things into 2030, you're going to see this convergence between artificial intelligence meeting finance. And that, in my opinion, that is part of the massive wealth transfer that's happening in the crypto ecosystem or the distributed ledger technology. You're witnessing this convergence of three major disruptions happening simultaneously that most people don't understand. Right. Again, the intersection of artificial intelligence, the intersection of blockchain-based finance, and the creation even of quantum computing, which is ultimately going to result in an autonomous economy. And that's a whole different discussion we can have another time. Right. I've written articles about...
You make it sound dubious, though.
Come on. You know...
come on. Like, of course it's dubious? Oh, come on. No, it's not dubious. I'm not sure which one you meant.
Maybe okay. A little bit of both, because... Right. You know, the technology is not the enemy. It's who governs the technology and how it's being used. And there are technologies, indeed, that can really benefit humanity and help people, but we choose not to do that. So, you know, what is it if not nefarious? I studied something called what's it called? 0-point energy. Most people think it's a myth. I do believe energy is all around us. There's a great book called The Hunt for 0 Point. It was actually shared with me by a former retired MI6 agent who used to live in this building with me. Dear friend of mine, he's also a big XRP holder, which is funny. Now, this guy was former retired MI6, and he told me these very interesting things, what basically the intelligence agencies were involved in, the military-industrial complex. So we have technology to pretty much help humanity, and we choose not to. So you do have some very nefarious entrenched powers that refuse to let this stuff out. And there's got to be a reason for that. Control.
Right.
Well,
okay.
I think money.
Yeah. Money is a form of control. I agree with you.
Ask yourself the question, if you look back 120 years, the technological changes we've had are off the charts, but we're still using the same fuel. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree with you.
Doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it doesn't. And, you know, in every paradigm shift, and we're living in one right now, there is a window of opportunity, and this is for your audience. Hopefully it does provide some value. This is it. Like, it's open now, and the window of opportunity is closing very fast, and it won't be open for much longer. So here at Black Swan Capitalist, my brother and I, we talk a big game, right? But it's true, we're not spectators. We are real participants in the next financial architecture. And what we do now for our audiences and what you guys are doing, it really is going to determine how it benefits everyone's future. So I'm just trying to tell people to make the moves while they still can before things change.
Right, and that would be to dig into XRP, gold, and silver. Those are your three?
XRP plays a massive role in this transformation. So I do believe having some skin in the game. I'm not saying go throw all your assets in there.
Right.
Being diversified is very important. We do teach this stuff. So the debasement trade, you need to preserve your wealth, and that can be passed down later on through gold and silver.
Right.
You do need some skin in the game as far as where money's going. And you have this massive consolidation of wealth and power that ultimately will live on the blockchain. So I can see a lot of value going into the XRP because it's a settlement currency and bridge currency.
All right. All right, so Vasan, where do we find you, man? You're on Twitter, Black Swan Capitalist, I know. You're on LinkedIn, Vasan Aljara, I know. You can share a screen if you want to show something, man.
Well, I appreciate that. Well,
guys, just so you know, I want a real-world example. I live in California, right? I have kids in all the schools. I got all the COVID shots. I don't think I've gotten sick since I've had a COVID shot. But what has happened to me over the last 3 years is that every now and then my eyes just start bulging. Like I've had this horrible eye thing for a week or 10 days at a time ever since I've had the COVID shots. So instead of getting sick, I get this weird eye thing. You know what I mean? And I have it now. So I keep doing this throughout the podcast. I'm sorry, guys. Not like I'm crying.
No, don't apologize, man.
I swear I'm pretty sure it's because I never get sick. But now, once a year, I get this weird eye thing, and I think it's COVID related. I don't know. It's only started since I had the COVID shots. I know it's weird, but it could be the snake poison, dude, in my eyeballs. Really, right?
Well, I mean, I've been down that rabbit hole, and I that's why I don't like talking about it, because I have a lot of friends who have taken it. And it's very hard to talk about it because
I think it's true.
It was a
I honestly believe that to be
very
true. I
bad
know
time
it seems
in our
like
history.
like a lark or whatever, but dude, I truly believe that my eyes are fucked up because of the COVID shots. I truly do. All right. Anyway,
I'm sorry.
See you guys later. All right. Well, yeah, everyone subscribe, Matt. Have a good day. For Son, we're going to have episode 2 shortly. We'll call it the comeback, the comeback. All right.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. See you later. Have a good day. All right.
Take care.